Welcome to Make It Plain from Make Plain Jesus Ministries, featuring Pastor James Bryan, where we take biblical truths in everyday situations and break them down to be as plain as possible. So, stay tuned and enjoy the broadcast.
Welcome to this episode of Make It Plain. We are glad that you've decided to join us today as we continue our discussion. And for those who are here for part one, you heard us talk about the challenges of being Christian in today's world. And we're going to continue that in this part. And we're going to continue that discussion and really deal more into some of the, not necessarily controversial, but things that people really don't talk about much, that we think about, we face, and we want to make sure that as we continue to make everything plain and usable for you and practical, that you give thought to this and you get some answers. And so, of course, I have Darius. Darius, you there? You gonna say hey?
Hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, I'm here.
And see, Darius, as you know by now, those who have listened to part one, that, you know, he's not shy, and that's a good thing. And it works out really well from the podcast perspective.
Maybe I'm asking it. Maybe I'm faking it. Who knows?
You could be. But I'm thinking at this point, I'm hoping that you're not, right?
Right.
Look, I gotta call your mom. Now I'm messing with you. But anyway, after all that, you know, we touched on some very intriguing topics right in part one, and we kind of left you on like the edge of a cliff at that point. So we're gonna.
You really did.
We did. It was perfect, wasn't it? So anyway, we want to go a little bit farther and ask a couple other questions and begin to deal with this topic. So, you ready, Darius, for this one?
I'm ready.
All right. So, one of the things that I really want to ask is, you know, again, we're dealing with trying to be Christian or living a Christian life in today's world. So, what challenges do you see when it comes to movies, right? Because these aren't the, like, your grandparents' movies and things like that. There's this supposedly realistic visuals of things so that you can experience things, you know. I know, right? I am. So when it comes to the standpoint of movies itself, and you still want to have your Christian walk, what are the challenges and what do you see right now? What do you hear your friends saying?
Yeah. Question for you while we're in the middle of the podcast. Am I able to say certain words like the S word?
Well, you don't know who's listening, so you got to clean it up the best you can.
Right. Okay. So, for example, like the interactions that men and women have.
Yes.
Intimately. Was that good?
There you go. Boy, that was really good.
That was good.
He's talking about sexual reaction.
Oh, okay. I could say the S word. I bet you people were like,
see, I didn't know what S was, so I just had to make sure I got that right.
Well, that's good content. I bet you people are laughing right now. Here.
Yeah, there you go.
No, but yeah, so sex, first of all, I think that's probably the biggest, that's the biggest thing in shows and movies. Because you said shows and movies or shows?
That's fine. I said movies, but you can put shows in.
Right, movies. And,
hey, you're my guest. I'm giving you,
Thank you so much. I like having freedom. No, but, and by the way, TV shows are more like movies, right? Everything they've been.
Right.
Hour-long episodes, the realism, the videography. Right. But yeah, that big part, other than, profanity, other than that, cuss words and stuff, sex, I think, is one of the biggest issues and obstacles within the shows. And that's why I want to start there, because when you said when you said movies and TV shows, even earlier before we started, right? That's why I was laughing. I was like, oh my gosh, like I was serious. I was very convicted because and I'm being real with you guys, honest and open and everything, and transparent. But I was watching a Netflix show last night. I believe it was last night and the night before, whatever. But Netflix shows, and Netflix is huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know this.
Yeah.
But they have a lot of great shows and everything like that. HBO, all these awesome things. But one of the things that I was talking with a friend about as well. This is so like awesome how this came up.
Right.
But is how the TV shows. And you talk about how realistic and all that is. Well, all the sex scenes and everything in it is not only too realistic, but it's very, very graphic.
Yeah.
And very specific. So all these different things. And but the level of how we of like what is pornography, right? All these different things. And it's so interesting as a church, it seems like we demonize so much pornography and people who may be addicted to pornography, all these things. But I said this, when in reality, we really all have to check our hearts because, let's just say being addicted to pornography is not my or your issue, right, or your specific sin issue per se, actually, we may need to think about that, because the shows themselves, these sexual scenes, that is pornography, and not even just like soft porn, but that really, it's gotten to a point, it's pornography. So, and then I've been convicted because I'm watching those shows, and I mean, I thank God for my sexuality. Like, hey, I thank you, God, right? But within His confines and within His will, right? But I'm not gonna lie, when I watch these shows, right, I don't turn a blind eye as I should to things that I watch, right? And it's easy to be in this place of, well, it's part of, because this is how they get you. And my friend was talking about that. They put these sex scenes in them, but then also make it part of the narrative and this whatever.
Exactly.
You quote unquote feel like you have to watch it. When I don't have to watch it at all, right? And I really shouldn't. But I'm going to be honest with you. I watch them anyway. And even if I try to come up with these reasons for why, it's still not good for my spiritual health. And also for my sexuality as a man and as a man of God. And so that's, I feel like the number one thing that popped into my head was the sex scenes and going about doing those things in a way that's honorable to God, and then also that's conducive, or that leads to me having spiritual maturity and growing in that,
Yeah, and so let me jump in here with a couple of things you said, and it's true. So on a lot of these shows, whether streaming channel it is, I've noticed, my wife and I have talked about this a lot, and that is, you kind of get in the point, you find something, the narrative or what they're saying this is about looks really good. And, you have several different episodes of it, usually somewhere around 10. And it's going really good for episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, but almost somewhere between 4 and 6, then what you're talking about is like front and center. And there is no hesitation, there is no reservation. And it doesn't even have to have anything to do with the narrative or what it's about.
It doesn't have to.
But it's like somewhere in the middle, after they think you've gotten hooked, then you're presented with it. So then you have the image in your mind even when the movie's over. So isn't that a challenge? So you hear folks talk about that?
And the funny thing is that, like, literally, that's so crazy how we're talking about this. And like my experience with my friend in the conversation, it all works together. I mean, because she said exactly what you're talking about, and getting to that she feels as if these shows intentionally do this, and I agree with her, actually. Right? They're not stupid. Like, they do things very strategically to get attention, and they put these sex scenes of all kinds of things or whatever in them to keep people hooked. And it's very similar, if not literally the same thing, an application of things like pornography or other application of sexual scenes. And it's just crazy how you say that, because the thing is, these shows and movies, they're so good. Like, that's the thing about it. They're so good, but then it's like, dang, like, why do you have to put this in right here? Like, because otherwise it's like, oh, this is, perfect. And for me too, the TV shows, because my issue is not portraying real life scenarios. That's not the issue. But I think the slippery slope is with, I think sex is really the hardest thing, because it's like, the way they portray it and go so in depth in realism, all that. I mean, everything else, like even with drugs and all these different things like that. It's like, again, parental advisory and things like that before you watch it. But it's not something that is like, if I see, for example, someone doing drugs, or they portray it or whatever, like, that's not something that is, I think, is bad for my spiritual maturity to see that, right? Whereas a sexual scene, that's totally different, right?
It has more of an impact on you, too.
Right, it has more of an impact.
So then, if I look at it from that perspective, I mean, it's interesting that you say that. So how many people do you know that when they get to those shows, try to fast forward through them, or that they say, oh, what the heck is there? I'll just wait. Right? Some people say they justify it, good or bad, however you want to look at it. They say, well, I'm going to fast forward through those scenes. But then I also hear people say to me, it's like, but look, even if you're fast forwarding and there's certain things in there that you don't like, they're getting from their record standpoint that you watched the whole thing. And so that lets them know that it must be popular. And so, but what do you think about that?
I mean, to answer the question in the beginning, -2. -2 people like fast forward. I'm just playing. I don't really know, but I could definitely tell you it's very rare, if I even hear of that, of somebody fast forwarding past, sex scenes. Especially in the shows today. I definitely saw that in movies, before, but yeah. So, but in terms of that, it's that is something when talking about looking at shows and movies and their ratings and that's a hard thing because it's like if I want to continue watching the show, and again, the shows are good, you know, aside from all of the things in there that may not be, that are not good for our eyes and our spirits, they're so good. And so it's like, dang, if I watch it, or even like you said, fast forward, I didn't know that, but that still counts in their statistics as, you know, this is being watched.
That's what I hear, yeah. So
that's hard because it's like, of course we don't want to, or we shouldn't want to push things like, you know, again, pornography on TV. And I'm saying it real. Plus, this is coming from, by the way, guys, I'm 22. So I'm a baby. Like, I'm young. This is not, I'm not, you know, but you know, the point is like pushing that. Of course, we don't want to push that, but it's hard when you're watching shows that are not only good, too. There may even be shows, for example, that, especially in this climate, for example, with everything going on with the attention around social justice and racial injustice, all these different things. You have shows and things like that who bring a lot more attention in portraying things that are going on. So you have shows that do a lot of good, but it's like, dang, you know, how do you balance that of the fact that, you know, by you watching it, you are telling them, yeah, this stuff is good. Keep showing more and more of it.
So let me ask you this question. So you said you went to private school, right?
Yes.
Was it a Christian school?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Now, here comes the dilemma, right? Everything you just said. I watch it, the shows are good and everything else. But how do you then take what you get taught in Christian school about sexuality, how God looks at it, but yet you're seeing all the stuff that's going on in television? So when the teachers are teaching a godly view from a textbook, if you will, does it just go in one ear and out the other? I'm saying you're representative, you may have had conversation with others. Are you wrestling with, well, wait a minute, they're telling me this, but I'm seeing this. They're telling me this, but I know brother, sister, so-and-so kind of did what they did on TV. You know, so how do you wrestle? I mean, how do you deal with all that?
Yeah, I think how you just phrase that is literally, I think, a good representation of how young people feel. Of this is what I'm experiencing or hearing or going through in the world, or like outside of, you know, the church and at home and my family, and then this is what I'm hearing. Actually, I would go as far to say this. I actually think things need to start with, while, you know, young people are very, very young as children, small children. The conversation about sex needs to start then, right? Now, I know some people may feel a little feel a little weird about that, like, whoa, what? Talk about sex to my 8-year-old child, this whatever. But, you know, I think a lot of times too, our perspectives are skewed, and so we automatically, in America especially, we sexualize everything. It's whatever. And I think in the church too, we've come to really make sex something that's so taboo, when in reality, in Scripture, it's one of the great gifts God's given us, and so it's also part of life. And so why not show your children what this part of life is in the right way and confines at a young age, so that they don't get that first, from other, and you guys probably heard something like that, but get it first from other sources outside the world, because I know you know this as a father, out of anything, and especially kids have it worse even today, even then when me and my friends, when I was little, which wasn't that long ago, but they're going to come in contact, they're not only going to come in contact with sex from other sources, social media, but they're going to come in contact with it younger than ever before.
That's right.
In their single digit years.
Right.
You know? So I don't really think at this point it's too early to have a conversation about sex in terms of waiting until their preteens, this or whatever, or before they go through or after they go through puberty, because they're going to learn what it is, and they're going to learn it either the way that they are taught at home, or God's way, or they're going to learn it the way that they get it from their peers. I agree. So I think that really needs to be the starting place for all of this, in the application.
And so I would say that, and so that goes to it. I'm not going to go in this topic on my next statement, but that goes to the point that the responsibility is in the home, that they got to make sure that when their kids, I say their kids, right? Are young, that they have to now teach them the right way. The funny thing, and I guess there aren't many funny things that occurred during the COVID part that everybody's gone through, but there's something that parents experience, and that is the reality of trying to teach their child. And so everybody's like, the teacher this and the teacher that, but now all of a
Yeah.
sudden they've got the kid home all the time and they realize what it is. But they also have an opportunity and privilege during this time to actually teach some things that maybe they didn't have time to do before. But let me shift gears. We could be on this topic, for the next several podcasts. But I want to ask you another question, still along the line of being Christian in today's world. What about clothing?
Yeah.
And dress and everything else. What are some of the challenges you see about the way people decide to dress and how people react, especially from the church perspective and everything else? Give me some feedback there and some of the challenges that you see.
Well, same thing like we talked about earlier with people within the church, this conversation around it, really debate, you could say, around like being part of the world or being spiritual, this or whatever type of thing. I think that's a big thing that people try to grapple with and try to balance or whatever. And I do think there's a balance, but to me, the issue is when it comes to clothing, I think a lot of times we do make things more complicated than they need to be. And then at the same time, too, there are things that there it takes, wisdom and a lot of, a conversation about, to really try to figure this out. But with the clothing, I feel like other than, as long as we're not, because this is the weird thing. Like when we talk about conforming to the patterns of the world, right, instead of to the Word of God. Again, I think a way that we can take this too far is thinking you can't follow, quote unquote, follow trends, or like you can't wear things that people in your culture are wearing. Right. That's to me, that is just that's out of here, right? That doesn't make any sense. At the same time, right, it takes wisdom and discernment to know, okay, these aren't trends you should follow in the first place. Right. So I would say, one thing is one to not be so hard on ourselves, because I do know there's a lot of traditions and denominations and different beliefs, again, within our family of Christianity, of people that believe different things with dress. And it's not about fighting over two subjects. Like the Bible calls us to not fight over these things. So that's one. But it's not put so much, I think, emphasis on like if you wear something, for example, I think we've gone too far with this, but like if you wear T-shirts and my elbow showing or something like that, or even for women, right? Of course, like that's to me that's going too far. At the same time, though, definitely being very self-aware about our intentions when choosing our dress is very important. And for both men and women too, right? Because I do think, which I'm glad that things are, I guess, starting to change a little bit, but for women historically, has been way more focused on them when it comes to covering up and all this. But intentions are everything, definitely.
They are.
And
one thing, let me jump in, is one of the things we here at our church at Make Plain Jesus Ministries, we always have this challenge. It's not really a challenge for us, but people always wonder. And they always say, well, what's it like? What do we have to dress? I've never been to church before. I see that they have to dress in suit and tie. I'm not a suit and tie. And what we always have to tell people, and this is literally the truth, we always say, people, as long as you're covered, meaning that, this isn't the free-for-all 1960-something or other, but as long as you're covered, we don't care. So we've had folks that come in shorts and flip-flops. We have some folks that feel like they got to wear a tie. Whatever they, as long as they got stuff covered, you're cool. And so we always tell people that. And so sometimes people don't believe it at first. Yeah. But then after a period of time, they say, okay, I got this. Because in the end, well, we're not after the outward, we're after the inward. Right. And so that's kind of how it is. And I think many churches, I can't say all, but there are others that think the same way. Yeah. And so it was interesting too. And even in this ministry on Sundays, there are certain leaders that are trying to take my dress through a transformation. And it is funny how it goes. And so, growing up, we always had to wear suit and ties. Yeah. We had to. Little kids, everything. Yes. And then after a period of time, there's this revelation where it's like, all of a sudden the lights went out in heaven, and all of a sudden the brightness and everything that, you really don't have to do that. Yeah. And so we kind of got away from that. But I agree that, we got to really think about the whole restrictions on dress, but I'm not saying there's certain things out there that obviously that you don't really need to wear. Exactly. But then there's some things in between, and it's like, okay, is that worth arguing about or not? Right. So, for instance, I joked with you when you came in. I said, "Man, where's your suit and tie when you came in?"
Right. Yeah.
He's like, "Oh," and you're trying to make something up on the spot,
right?
So, but it isn't about that at all. So,
Yeah.
and then that way, it's like, well, how else do you get folks to come that have never gone to church before?
Exactly.
You need to take them as they are. Jesus did the same thing.
Yeah.
So, what about some of the styles? I mean, okay, I'm gonna give your secrets away. I think.
You said my secrets?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So, what are some of the styles that you like that can be described? Are there different fashion designers? Are the different things that you like? So people can critique you and send me a note afterwards.
They can send you a note?
Right?
Oh my God, right.
No, that's with you. But tell me, some of the things that you feel comfortable with that you see others wear that you know are Christ followers, believers, right? What do you say?
Yeah. Well, big thing for me personally, this is just fashion and style. I don't really follow trends.
Okay.
Which is funny. One thing for me in my wardrobe or my fashion,
Right.
I try to have things that are like staples.
Yeah.
But like form my own look. Now,
Right.
I know a lot of people are like, how do you do that? What does it look like? But honestly, I can tell you, like when I look at myself from freshman year of college into now, 4 years ago, like, oh my goodness, I could not dress. Like, but the cool thing is that over time, as I pursue things and like, different looks or whatever, like my own style, emerges.
Yeah.
And you get better with that. But,
Right.
For me personally, I don't follow specific trends at all.
Good.
Particularly. And I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. Just
Right.
me personally, I like having a specific look that is. So, for example, like, doesn't mean I don't wear things of the culture or whatever. Like I have ripped jeans on right now.
Yeah.
By the way, people, if you don't know, I have ripped jeans on. I'm showing a little skin. I'm showing the skin. I have ripped jeans on. I have some white Stan Smiths, which I love, and I have a white T-shirt on.
Yeah.
So I do things different. But believe it or not, like growing up, I grew up in the same culture.
Yeah.
Of wearing suit and tie at church. Like
Yeah.
that's the type of church that I had, my home church. And but I love. I was the type of young person I am still. I love suits. I love dressing dapper. Like
Yeah.
I love suits and ties and all that. Like that's actually part of my style.
Right.
But the funny thing for me is that as I got older, my street style and like casual, all these different things, like I
Right.
started to create that and mold that. Instead of like, I feel like usually the other way around is as young people get older, they start to get the dapper. So, but for me, I have a style where I like to. Have street or casual, whatever, but also dapper.
Yeah.
But I try not to put myself in boxes. I think that's
Good.
a big deal.
Good.
Big issue. I wear what I like to wear and what I
Right.
find, cool and comfortable.
Good.
And stylish.
So let me now go to a different topic for you. Still on the same overall umbrella. So what's the challenges that you see in dating?
Oh my gosh. I knew this was coming. I was like, he's about to say dating. Oh my goodness. Hold on.
So what are some of the challenges you see, that you see yourself, others going through from the dating scene?
I'm very uncomfortable with this question. Can you move? I'll just play with it.
There is nothing that you're uncomfortable with. I've already known that.
Well, so the thing is, by the way, you said things uncomfortable. I thought of my checking account, but that's what I'm just playing. I'm playing. No, so yeah, but dating, I think this is such a great topic.
Yep.
I think this is something we need to talk about a lot more often.
Right.
But you said, what are the challenges in dating?
Yeah, what do you see? And again, remember, we're talking about you profess to be a Christian, you're a Christ follower, and that's number one. But you're in the world. You want to date somebody, and eventually you want to marry somebody, and all these other things. So where is that tension? Where is the challenges? And the challenges can be from the standpoint of inwardly what you're feeling and how you deal with that. Outwardly, what other friends that know you're Christians, what church may think. Just all of these things. How does that all cause pressure or not? How do you deal with it? This is the first time I've seen you stop and just all of a sudden like, man, how do I end?
Let me think about this. Yeah. Let me think.
This must be deep.
Unlike my checking account, I'm just playing, guys.
Right,
My checking
okay.
account's good. I'm gonna stop joking with that one. Yeah, dating. I think there's a lot of challenges for people in dating, like people, period, in any demographic, especially today. I feel like we've made relationships, period, in like all sorts of contexts, really difficult for no reason, right? Not saying relationships are supposed to quote unquote be easy and simple, but we've made them way more difficult than what they should be. But specifically for young people, I think even more now than ever, things are just way more complicated than ever.
In what way? Just give some examples.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, peer pressure is always there. You know, I think a big challenge for a believer, especially. But you know, from my perspective as a young man, right, and I'm seeking to honor God with my sexuality, but as well as honor Him in relationship, and by that I mean being with someone. You know how people talk about the whole being with someone yoked and all that, right? But being with someone who pushes me towards walking in God's purpose for my life, right?
Right.
I want to honor Him in all those aspects. It's very difficult because, again, especially at a young age in our culture, and you know, we have social media, everything like that.
Right.
But so many things in today's day is pushing us to do things that are quenching our pleasure.
Right.
It's always about that. You know?
Yeah.
And I think especially for a lot of young men, there's a very toxic idea of relationships and sexuality, which, you know, it's always been like that in the earth. But, you know, especially for young men right now, the idea of not only being monogamous, you know, I mean, you know, people, the whole thing of dating around this or whatever,
right,
or having a bunch of different, you know, sexual experiences or relationships, of course, like that's not healthy. But also like the way our minds are about relationships and sexuality,
right?
Where, you know, our society is like, and I really feel this. But for example, to be a man, my masculinity or my quote unquote my manhood is found in my sexual prowess,
right?
Or how many women I can get this or whatever. Right. And people, it seems like they, you know, find out when they become enlightened when they get older that, oh, you know what, man. I know it sounds funny and sarcastic, but like seriously, find out that you know what, being truly committed to someone spiritually, mentally, physically, sexually, and emotionally, produces way more benefits in life than being promiscuous or quote unquote, you know, completely open, in my experiences with people.
Exactly.
And so I think that's a really I think that's one of the biggest challenges. But I think another thing too, now I think about it, with dating, specifically for Christian people, is like finding partners in the first place. I think a lot of people stuff like, no, real talk, because like it's so funny. People have so many expectations. Oh, this is huge. Yep, this is it. This is
all
it.
right. Look, he's on. He's going now. He's rolling. He's rolling.
This is it. Yeah, people. So we have so many expectations of what we want in partners, right? And again, I'm 22, so like I know it's funny. People are like, "What do you know about relationship 22?" But I feel like God has shown me this, and I see it like we have so many expectations for what we want partners to be, and this is a big thing I've been growing and learning and understanding. Is right, it's good to have standards, but a lot of us have so many expectations or different things for what we want our relationships to be like. Right. But are those quote unquote expectations or our list? Right. Is that like, did we consult God when we wrote that, or when we had those expectations or standards? So one thing I'm really learning is, for example, a lot of people, singleness, right? That's a big thing we gotta talk about, and you know, a number of people in their singleness can be like what's going on, this or whatever. And one thing I've noticed is that, like, it's not bad to be single. Being single is amazing. That's an essential part of life. Right. But people who have certain troubles in life, with, like, for example, I don't know whether it may be staying in a relationship or being able to find, I hear this a lot. I think I hear this more often. I'm not saying it happens more often this way, but I just hear more often with women. And I feel bad for my sisters. I really do. But, like, finding a man that is, you know, on the same level they are spiritually and all these different things. Right. But like, are having these expectations for people in our lives to meet. And I've come to realize, like, I should keep the standards that God gives me, right? Those standards. That's right. But maybe having certain expectations, like she gotta look this way, or like for me, she gotta be really curvy, or something like that, you know, or like, or like, you know, for a woman, she the guy has to be like 6'4", or she has to be a specific race. Like, I love black women, right? For example, I love all women, but you get my point. Like, I prefer this race of person. Right. That could be holding you, not could, that probably may be holding you back from God blessing you with someone that is a great, the best gift for you. Yep. It doesn't mean that God can't bless you with someone that is a quote unquote from a specific race, but because our focus is on that, we miss out on the qualities and things that actually matter. Exactly. I think that's a big challenge for dating.
Exactly, I agree with you there. And so at that point, we're coming to the end of part 2. And so what I want you to do for those that are listening is that I want to make sure that you just give us some feedback on what you've heard today. Give us some input about this discussion there and some of the challenges that you're having. And we want you to also stay tuned. We have one more segment with Darius, and that will be part 3. So I want you to anticipate that and be ready for, I mean, you'll come back, right? Oh, yeah, forget. He's coming back. Yeah.
I'll be here. I'll be here.
So for part 3, for that last segment, we want to make sure you anticipate that, tell your friends about it, and make sure that you tune in. And if you want to see what else is going on around here, go to makeplainjesus.org, and you'll find that information about what's happening at our church. We would love to see you get involved, have conversations with you. Until then, you have a great one.